these challenges, we have to understand that Katrina may have battered levees, but it also exposed silent storms that have ravaged parts of this city and our country for far too long. The storms of poverty and joblessness, inequality and injustice. Those are the storms before Katrina hit. I was down in Houston visiting evacuees a few days after Katrina. I met a woman in the Reliance Center who had long known these storms in her life. She told me, and I quote, "We had nothing before the hurricane. Now we got less than nothing." We had nothing before the hurricane. Now we got less than nothing. I think about her sometimes. I think about how America left her behind before the storm.
All right.
I wonder where she is today. America failed that woman long before that failure showed up on our television screens. We failed her again during Katrina. And tragically, we are failing her for a third time. And that needs to change. And that's one of the reasons I am running for president of the United States. To restore our trust with her. It's time for America to rebuild trust with the people of New Orleans and the Gulf Coast. When I am president, I will start by restoring that most basic trust, that your government will do what it takes to keep you safe. The words "never again," spoken so often in those weeks after Katrina, must not fade to a whisper. The Army Corps of Engineers has rebuilt the levees that were most damaged by the storm, but funding has sometimes stalled, and New Orleans remains unprotected. We can't gamble every hurricane season, and that's why when I am president, we will finish building a system of levees that can withstand a 100-year storm. The goal of expanding and protecting against the Category 5 storm will not come. Let's get it done. And I'm hoping the United States of America. We also have to restore nature's barriers, the wetlands. The barrier islands that can take the first blows and protect the people of the Gulf Coast. If catastrophe comes, the American people must be able to call on a competent government. I am president. The days of dysfunction and cronyism in Washington will be over. No more crowding. No more heads of the Arabian Horses Association. Director of FEMA will report to me. He or she will have the highest qualifications in emergency management. I won't just tell you that I'll insulate that office from politics. I'll guarantee it by giving my FEMA director a fixed term, just like the director of the Federal Reserve, so that they will outlast the time that I'm in office.
All right.
I don't want FEMA to be thinking for 1 minute about the politics of a crisis. I want FEMA to do its job, which is protecting the American people and protecting a president's political future. That's the promise I have. We take office. My FEMA director will work with emergency management officials in all 50 states to create a national response plan. Because we need to know before disaster comes who will be in charge, how the federal, state, and local governments will work together to respond. putting up fences is not enough. It's not sufficient, because renewing trust with the people of New Orleans is not just about stronger levees and pumping systems, it's about people. So many of us live a life that is ordered with comforts we can count on. Somewhere we know there are people who don't have a house, though, with a sturdy roof, who have nowhere to go when they can't make rent, who don't have a car to drive to another city to go to when a storm is coming, who can't get care when they're sick, don't get an education that would give them a chance to achieve their dreams. We know that there are so many fellow Americans who are crying out for help, and we don't listen as a government, and sometimes we as citizens don't listen. We decide that those children who aren't learning, those are somebody else's children, not our children. We decide those folks in the Ninth Ward who still haven't gotten anything back after the storm, that that's somebody else's problem. Too often we lose our sense of common destiny and understanding that we are all tied together. That when a woman has less than nothing in this country, that makes us all poor. That is why the second thing we need to do is to make sure that Reconstruction is making a real difference in people's lives. Across this city, we see the evidence that George Bush's promises were empty. It's not acceptable that federal money is not reaching communities that need it, or that Louisiana officials have filled out millions of forms just to get Reconstruction funds. When I am president, the federal rebuilding coordinator will report directly to me, and we will ensure that resources show results. It's time to cut the red tape so that the federal government is a partner, not an opponent, in getting things done here in New Orleans and here in the Gulf Coast. Instead of giving no-bid contracts to companies headed by the president's former campaign manager, we will make sure that rebuilding benefits the local economy. And work across the aisle in the Senate to crack down on no-bid contracts. To make sure that emergency contracting is only done immediately after an emergency. When I am president, if there is a job that can be done by a New Orleans resident, the contract will go to a resident